But anything with wheat, and wheat is in 75% of the things in the regular grocery store because it's used as a thickener. So if you're trying to avoid wheat, it's good to read labels. You're shocked
Yeah.
at what contains wheat.
Between that and
What about-
corn, you can't
What about
avoid it.
bulgur wheat?
Bulgur wheat.
Bulgur wheat is okay.
Yeah, because they use a lot of that.
Yeah.
But for a different reason, and we're gonna get to cereal carbohydrates in a minute, so you'll understand.
Yeah, there's gluten in everything.
Well,
Processed food. Gluten.
yeah, and we're gonna talk about gluten too. Go to the next one. Second worst thing, corn, and that means corn in all its forms. It doesn't just mean corn on the cob, corn syrup,
High
corn
fructose
bread. Oh, I know, I was raised in the South. It's
Maltodextrin.
just not fair.
Maltodextrin.
Maltodextrin.
Yeah.
So corn in about 75%,
Hmm.
75% of the things in the grocery store as well.
Count
For those
corn
of you-
chowders out, huh?
Corn chowders out. As a treat,
Oh,
as a treat, and if you leave the wheat out. Now, I'm surprised no one's asked me, what about corn? What about organic corn?
What about organic corn?
Doesn't matter. Organic corn certainly better than GMO corn, but corn chemically doesn't work for the O. Remember the lectin and the binding site. So corn in any form, organic or not, is a problem for O's. So it should probably be reserved as a treat.
Does it have to do with the starch or something?
No, it has to do with the lectins
The binding.
and the binding site and the O's blood sugar.
Because my daughter craves wheat and corn. She loves it. She can't get enough of it.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it's common though that we like the very things that are bad for us. So,
I love a good bagel.
well, there's hope because you can have a flax or a millet bagel.
You-
And I actually prefer them to wheat. I like the texture better.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
coming up, we're gonna do some substitutions. We're gonna look at these 7 foods and what you could eat instead.
Good.
So going to number 3, kidney beans. I saw them here.
how
Love.
bizarre.
A lot of people think, well, beans are good food. Yes, beans are good food, but not every bean is good for every blood group. So the worst bean for the O is the kidney bean. So that means no red beans and rice. The traditional way.
Or chili.
Well, but you're gonna put another kind of bean in it.
Okay.
Navy beans, also bad for no. Now you can substitute white beans or northern beans. The taste doesn't change.
Lima
much.
beans.
Lime is negative, okay. But these are the top 7 inflammatory foods.
Okay.
There are other foods you shouldn't have that aren't on this list. And we're gonna talk about those. Lentils, I saw those.
Even sprouted in any form.
It's chemical. Yes, it's chemical.
Oh.
Now, why you can have sprouted wheat is the sprouting kills the gluten.
But it doesn't transform the lentils?
No, it doesn't. Chemical.
So when you say sprouted bread,
Wheat.
we can have Ezekiel bread?
You can have that, yes, and the
Okay.
seam bread, yes.
Okay.
So let's talk about gluten for just a minute since y'all brought it up. The problem with gluten is that it contains a chemical called gliadin. Gliadin acts on the body like an opiate. So it doesn't make you high, but what it does is it makes you crave carbohydrates. So have you ever gone out for a very nice meal or been with somebody, they ordered a beautiful piece of salmon, a great big salad, and there was bread on the table. And they had a piece or two, and before you know it, they'd eaten most of the bread. The salmon comes, the salad comes, they don't want it. Because the gliadin in the gluten makes you crave carbohydrates. And they've done studies, and they know people that eat gluten, gliadin, that they will actually eat 440 to 880 more calories in a day. So it acts as an opiate in your system, and it makes you crave carbohydrates. So that's what it is about the gluten. That's why it's bad for you. So people who overeat, and you can always tell carbohydrate abuse, usually the person's kind of thick in the middle, don't be looking too closely. But I can always tell people that eat a lot of carbohydrates because they look like me, thick through the middle. And we're going to talk about why that is, but that's why gluten is so bad for you. Let's go to number 6, peanuts.
I want to give a right on that.
So other nuts good, other nuts good, but not peanuts.
Peanuts are actually a legume that comes out of the ground. They're not a nut. They're not a tree nut.
Oh, I didn't know that, but they're put with peanuts in Dr. Diodamo's book, so they're classified as a nut. But maybe that's why they're bad when other nuts are not, I don't know. Okay, lastly, white potatoes. So for any of you who had hopes of leaving here today and going and having a nice big cheeseburger and french fries, no bun, no french fries, no cheese. So going forward, when we talk about these lectins, you may wonder why they're so bad. We talked about having heartburn, we talked about having a stomach ache, we talked about having excess mucus production. Many of you are probably thinking, I can live with those if I can have a cheeseburger and french fries. But it doesn't stop there. That's the effect of the lectin at its least damaging situation. It can cause destruction of the microvilli in the small intestine. Now we're starting to talk about something that affects your ability to absorb nutrients. It causes things like Crohn's disease and inflammatory bowel syndrome. So now we're talking about lectins causing conditions that doctors recognize, and it's more than just a stomach ache or heartburn. Mentioned earlier that anything ending in itis is a result of what? Inflammation.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you should answer me more. And it does lead to malabsorption of protein, so at some point it becomes very important to leave off those 7 items. When we talk about other effects of lectins, one of the biggies is insulin resistance and diabetes. How many people in here fight this or are afraid they're going to be diabetic? Anybody give that consideration?
I was pre-diabetic until I went all raw, and then it totally changed.
That's right. So would you be surprised to know that it's actually very rare for O's to be diabetic if their system's in balance? And so we're going to talk about how you get out of balance, and some of it is eating these 7 things.
When people say they're pre-diabetic, how do you know you're pre-diabetic?
Blood sugar between 100 and 120
Okay.
My doctor.
is what the doctors say. They want you to be under 100. Now, I think the naturopaths sometimes think the range is a little higher, but that's how they define it today.
Yeah, they just told me to drop 20 pounds, and I'd probably be okay.
Okay?
Thank
Would
you.
anybody care to guess the single most effective thing you could do to drive down blood sugar? Anybody want to guess?
Well, for me, it was raw food, but I don't know.
Very good choice, but not an option for everybody. There's something that will work on every human being. Anybody?
Wow.
You're gonna have to have a dump truck to get out of here today. Exercise. So let's talk about diabetes or insulin resistance for just a minute. The why it happens, the chemistry of it, is the lectin sort of impersonates insulin, and it blocks the receptor on the cell, preventing insulin from getting in the cell. That's why the insulin resistance, which leaves glucose free to flow in as much as it wants.